The Silent Gambit, Part 1. First Contact's Deception. The Nexari Empire's flagship, Eternal Dawn, hung like a jeweled predator against the backdrop of infinite stars, its crystalline hull refracting light in patterns that had struck fear into 1,000 civilizations. Admiral Vexthor stood on the command deck, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he studied the holographic display before him. His lip curled in what passed for amusement among his species. "Another human vessel," he announced to his bridge crew, voice dripping with disdain. "And this one appears to be conducting research." The last words carried a note of mockery that drew appreciative chuckles from his officers. The vessel in question, the TNS Archimedes, drifted at the edge of the Carina Nebula, its modest profile a stark contrast to the grandeur of the Nexari warships now surrounding it. Its hull bore the markings of the Terran Naval Science Division, and its external arrays suggested it was indeed nothing more than a research vessel. Commander Rena Walsh stood at the helm of the Archimedes, her weathered features illuminated by the soft glow of the ship's instruments. 20 years of service had earned her the right to command what appeared to be a simple research vessel, but appearances, as the Nexari were about to learn, could be deceiving. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the looming presence of the Nexari fleet. Lieutenant James Foster, her tactical officer, responded without taking his eyes off his console. "Nexari vessels maintaining formation at designated distances. Their weapons are powered but not locked. They're playing with us, exactly as predicted." "Perfect," Walsh whispered, more to herself than to her crew. "Maintain current protocols. Let them think they're the ones in control." The Nexari were notorious throughout the galaxy for their technological superiority complex. They had conquered dozens of species, always following the same pattern. Identify a seemingly vulnerable target, toy with them, demonstrate their overwhelming power, and then force submission. They had never failed. Until now. Aboard the Eternal Dawn, Admiral Vexthor's second-in-command, Sub-Commander Zix, approached with a data tablet. "Scans confirm it's a Mark II research vessel, Admiral. Minimal weapons, standard shields. Their most dangerous equipment appears to be their sensor array." He allowed himself a brief laugh. "Shall we demonstrate our superiority?" Vexthor raised a hand, his 6 fingers spreading in a gesture of patience. "Let them sweat a little longer. Have you detected any attempts at communication with their command?" "None, Admiral. They appear to be maintaining standard research protocols. We're picking up regular data streams consistent with astronomical surveys." "How delightfully ignorant," Vexthor mused. "They don't even recognize the honor of being conquered by the Nexari Empire." Back on the Archimedes, Walsh's crew continued their carefully choreographed performance. Each crew member knew their role in what would soon become a turning point in human history. They had trained for this moment for years, selected specifically for their ability to maintain composure under extreme pressure. Dr. Isabella Martinez, the ship's chief scientist, maintained a steady stream of astronomical data collection, ensuring their cover remained convincing. "Commander," she called out, her voice carrying just the right note of concerned professionalism. "The Nexari vessels are interfering with our gravitational wave measurements. Should we adjust our sensors?" "Proceed with adjustments, Doctor," Walsh replied loudly enough for any listening devices to pick up. "We'll continue our mission as planned." The Nexari ships drew closer, their crystalline hulls creating a gorgeous but terrifying light show against the nebulous backdrop. They had positioned themselves in a standard attack formation, one they had used countless times before to devastating effect. Admiral Vexthor finally tired of the game. "Open a channel to the human vessel," he commanded. "Let's see how they respond to their impending doom." The communication officer complied, and Vexthor's imposing image appeared on the Archimedes' main screen. "Human vessel," he began, his translated voice carrying both authority and contempt. "You have entered space claimed by the Nexari Empire. Your primitive vessel and crew are now property of the Empire. Prepare to be boarded." Commander Walsh stood from her chair, allowing a carefully calculated mix of confusion and concern to cross her features. This is Commander Rena Walsh of the Terran naval science vessel Archimedes. We are conducting peaceful research in international space as recognized by the Galactic Consortium. We mean no harm and request permission to continue our work. Vexthor's laugh echoed through the communication channel. The Galactic Consortium holds no authority here, human. Your vessel's designation is irrelevant. You will submit to immediate boarding, or we will demonstrate why the Nexari Empire remains undefeated. Walsh exchanged glances with her bridge crew, each understanding that the Nexari had taken the bait completely. The Empire's arrogance had led them exactly where humanity needed them to be. Years of planning, of careful technological development, disguised as scientific research, had brought them to this moment. Please, Walsh pleaded, adding a slight tremor to her voice. We're simply scientists. We have valuable research data aboard. Allow us to transmit it to our base before. Enough. Vexthor barked. Your attempts at negotiation are as primitive as your vessel. Prepare for demonstration of true power. As the communication channel closed, Walsh allowed herself a small smile. The Nexari had no idea they were about to become part of humanity's most ambitious defensive strategy, one that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. All hands, she announced calmly, prepare for Phase 1. Let's show them what human research can really do. The Silent Gambit. Part 2. The Web of Patience. The Nexari Empire's attack began exactly as the human strategists had predicted. 3 of their smaller vessels, each still dwarfing the Archimedes, moved into a triangular formation. Their crystalline hulls pulsed with stored energy, preparing to unleash what they believed would be an overwhelming show of force. Lieutenant Foster's fingers danced across his tactical console, though not in panic as the Nexari surely assumed. Each movement was precisely calculated, each system adjustment part of a greater design. Enemy vessels charging weapon systems, he reported. Energy signatures match historical records exactly. Commander Walsh nodded, mentally counting down the seconds. The Nexari were nothing if not predictable in their arrogance. Begin passive scan recording, she ordered. Let's add to our collection. The first blast from the Nexari ships came as a brilliant purple beam, designed more for visual intimidation than tactical efficiency. It struck the Archimedes' outer shields, creating a spectacular light show that would have terrified any genuine research vessel's crew. Shields holding an apparent 62% capacity, Lieutenant Foster announced, emphasizing the word apparent slightly. In truth, the Archimedes' shield strength hadn't dropped at all, but the ship's external sensors broadcast false readings that would feed the Nexari's superiority complex. Admiral Vexthor's voice boomed through the ship's communications once again. Impressive that your primitive shield survived even that much. Perhaps you'll provide more entertainment than expected before your inevitable surrender. Dr. Martinez continued her performance at the science station, frantically calling out sensor readings and apparent system failures. Her actual work, hidden beneath this theater, was far more crucial. Every energy blast from the Nexari ships provided new data, filling in the final gaps in humanity's understanding of their weapons technology. Commander, she called out, genuine excitement bleeding through her professional facade. I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations in their shield matrix. It matches the theoretical models perfectly. Walsh allowed herself a small nod. Humanity had spent years studying the few fragments of Nexari technology they could acquire, developing countermeasures in secret while maintaining the appearance of a technologically inferior species. The Archimedes, despite its unassuming exterior, represented the pinnacle of human ingenuity and patience. The Nexari ships continued their attack, gradually escalating their weapon power while maintaining formation. Each blast was meant to slowly wear down their target's defenses while demonstrating the futility of resistance. It was a strategy that had worked countless times before, breaking the will of species far older than humanity. Their formation is optimal, Foster reported quietly. All vessels within the resonance field. Walsh's fingers tightened slightly on her chair's armrests. Begin power redistribution sequence. Keep it subtle. Deep within the Archimedes hull, systems that appeared to be simple research equipment began to pulse with carefully contained energy. The ship's true nature was hidden beneath layers of misdirection, its revolutionary technology disguised as mundane scientific instruments. Aboard the Eternal Dawn, Sub-Commander Zix frowned at his readings. "Admiral, I'm detecting some unusual energy patterns from the human vessel. They don't match any known research equipment. Probably malfunctioning systems," Vexthor dismissed with a wave of his hand. "Their technology is barely worthy of the term. Prepare the boarding parties. Let's end this farce." The Nexari boarding ships began to launch, their sleek forms cutting through space toward the apparently defenseless Archimedes. They moved with practiced precision, having performed this maneuver on countless vessels before. Commander Walsh watched their approach with carefully hidden satisfaction. "Dr. Martinez, how many ships are within the quantum field?" "All boarding vessels have entered the range," Martins confirmed, her voice steady. "The field is stable and ready for activation." The Archimedes crew maintained their act of growing desperation as the boarding ships drew closer. Emergency alerts sounded throughout the ship, and panicked communications were broadcast on open channels. To the Nexari, it all appeared to be the chaotic response of an inferior species facing inevitable defeat. "Commander," Foster reported, adding a tremor to his voice for the benefit of any listening devices, "boarding ships will reach our hull in 30 seconds. Walsh stood from her chair, adopting a pose of defiant resignation. "Open a channel to the Eternal Dawn." Admiral Vexthor's smug face appeared on screen once again. "Have you finally accepted your fate, human?" "Admiral," Walsh began, allowing her voice to carry both fear and determination. "Please, we have scientists aboard, civilian researchers. Surely the great Nexari Empire has no need to." "Your attempts at appeal are pathetic," Vexthor interrupted. "The Nexari Empire shows no mercy to inferior species. Your crew will serve as an excellent example to others who might consider entering our space." Walsh's expression shifted ever so slightly, a change too subtle for the Nexari to interpret with their limited understanding of human expressions. "You're right about one thing, Admiral. We will serve as an example." She cut the communication channel and turned to her crew. "All stations, prepare for Phase 2. Let's show them what humanity has been working on while they were busy playing with their crystals." The Archimedes' seemingly primitive hull began to hum with power that had nothing to do with research equipment. Years of careful planning, of deliberate misdirection, and patient development were about to pay off. The trap was set, and the Nexari had placed themselves perfectly within it. "Quantum field stabilized," Dr. Martins announced, all pretense of panic gone from her voice. "Ready on your command." Commander Walsh took her seat once again, her posture now reflecting the true nature of her ship and crew. Let's redefine the term research vessel for our Nexari friends. The Silent Gambit. Part 3. Breaking Point. The first indication that something was wrong came from the Nexari boarding ships. Their sleek, crystalline forms suddenly stuttered in their approach, as if hitting invisible barriers in space. Aboard the Eternal Dawn, warning signals began to flash across multiple consoles. "Admiral," Sub-Commander Zix called out, his usual confidence wavering. "The boarding vessels are reporting unusual quantum fluctuations. Their navigation systems are. They're losing alignment with normal spacetime." Admiral Vexthor's tailed features contorted in confusion. "Impossible. Run a diagnostic on our sensors. No primitive human vessel cold." "Sir," another officer interrupted, genuine alarm in their voice. "The research vessel. Its energy signature is changing." The Archimedes' hull had begun to emit a subtle blue glow, barely visible against the backdrop of space. To the untrained eye, it might have appeared to be a simple shield malfunction, but to the Nexari's advanced sensors, it represented something far more terrifying. Something that should have been impossible. Commander Walsh's voice was steady as she gave the order. Initiate quantum lock sequence. The space around the Archimedes began to distort, like ripples in a pond, but in 3 dimensions. The necessary boarding vessels found themselves trapped in these ripples, their highly advanced propulsion systems rendered useless by forces they had never encountered before. "What's happening?" Vex Thor demanded, his composure cracking for the first time. "Explain this." Dr. Martinez's fingers flew across her console aboard the Archimedes, monitoring the quantum field stability. Field strength at 60% and rising. The Nexari ships are fully contained within the resonance matrix. What the Nexari were witnessing was the fruit of 2 decades of human research and development. While they had dismissed Earth's scientific vessels as primitive and unthreatening, humanity had been studying something far more fundamental than simple weapons technology. They had learned to manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. The boarding vessels began to drift, their crystalline hulls refracting light in increasingly chaotic patterns. Their crew's desperate communications filled the command channel. Controls unresponsive, spatial coordinates unstable, unable to maintain position. Lieutenant Foster allowed himself a small smile as he reported, "All enemy vessels are now within the primary containment zone. Their weapon systems are trying to power up, but the quantum disruption is preventing any energy buildup." Aboard the Eternal Dawn, panic was beginning to spread. The mighty Nexari Empire had never encountered anything like this. Their superior technology, their undefeated warships, their unstoppable weapons, all were being rendered useless by forces they couldn't even understand. "Full power to weapons," Vex Thor roared. "Destroy that vessel now." The Eternal Dawn's primary weapon arrays came online, their crystalline focusing chambers charging with enough energy to vaporize a small moon. But as the energy built up, something strange began to happen. The beams, when fired, curved and twisted in impossible ways, some even turning back toward their source. "Sir," Zix reported, his voice shaking, "our weapon signatures. They're being reflected back at us. The humans have somehow created a localized distortion in space-time itself." Commander Walsh stood from her chair, her calm demeanor a sharp contrast to the chaos unfolding around her ship. "Open a channel to the Eternal Dawn," she ordered. "I believe it's time we had another chat with Admiral Vex Thor." The Admiral's face appeared on screen, his usual arrogance replaced by barely contained fury and fear. "What sorcery is this? What have you done to our ships?" "Not sorcery, Admiral," Walsh replied coolly. "Science. Real science, not the brute force application of stolen technology that your empire relies on. While you were busy conquering primitive species, humanity was studying the fundamental forces of the universe itself." The Archimedes' hull pulsed with increasingly bright energy as more systems came online. What had appeared to be simple research equipment was revealing its true nature. A network of quantum field generators capable of warping the very structure of reality around them. "Impossible," Vex Thor spat. "Your species is barely spaceworthy. You couldn't have developed this technology." "That's the problem with empires like yours, Admiral," Walsh responded. "You're so convinced of your superiority that you never bother to look beneath the surface. Every research vessel you ignored, every scientific mission you dismissed, they were all part of something much bigger." Dr. Martinez's voice cut through the tension. "Commander, quantum field stability at 85%. We're ready to begin the final phase." The trapped Nexari ships hung in space, their crystalline hulls reflecting the increasingly intense light emanating from the Archimedes. Their crews watched in horror as their supposedly primitive target revealed itself to be something far more advanced than anything they had encountered in their centuries of conquest. "This is your only warning, Admiral," Walsh declared. "The Nexari Empire will withdraw from this sector of space immediately. You will never again threaten Earth or any of its colonies. If you refuse, we will be forced to demonstrate the full capabilities of our research vessel." Vex Thor's response was cut short by more urgent alarms aboard his ship. The quantum distortions were spreading, beginning to affect even the mighty Eternal Dawn. Systems began to fail as space itself seemed to twist around them. Humanity's trap had been sprung, and the galaxy's greatest empire was about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating their supposed inferiors. The real question was, would their pride allow them to retreat, or would the Archimedes need to provide an unforgettable demonstration of human ingenuity? The Silent Gambit. Part 4. Revelation of Power. Admiral Vexthor's pride proved stronger than his judgment. Despite the impossible situation his fleet now faced, he couldn't accept defeat at the hands of what he had dismissed as primitives. All ships, he commanded, his voice trembling with rage, concentrate fire on their quantum field generators. No human technology can withstand the full power of the Nexari Empire. Commander Walsh watched the enemy's desperate attempt with calm resignation. They never learn, do they? She turned to Lieutenant Foster. Status of their weapon systems. Energy buildup detected across all vessels, Foster reported. They're trying to synchronize their crystal matrices for a combined assault, exactly as our simulations predicted. The space around the Archimedes erupted in a dazzling display as dozens of Nexari energy weapons fired simultaneously. The combined blast would have been enough to crack a planet's crust. But instead of impacting their target, the beams twisted and curved, caught in the quantum distortions that now permeated the battlefield. Dr. Martinez monitored her readings with intense focus, quantum field absorbing 97% of their weapon energy. The remainder is being redirected through the dimensional folds. Commander, we're ready for the demonstration. Walsh nodded solemnly. Begin power transfer sequence. Let's show them what happens when you push humanity too far. The Archimedes hull began to pulse with a deeper, more intense light. What had appeared to be standard research sensors now revealed their true nature. Quantum energy collectors that had been gathering and storing power from the Nexari's own attacks. Impossible. Sub-Commander Zix shouted aboard the Eternal Dawn. Their hull is channeling energy on a scale that should tear any ship apart. The readings, they're beyond anything in our database. The Nexari fleet's continued assault only fed more power into the Archimedes systems. Each blast they fired was caught in the quantum field, its energy redirected and absorbed by the human vessel's revolutionary technology. The trap wasn't just containing them. It was using their own power against them. Final warning. Admiral, Walsh broadcasted. Order your fleet to stand down, or we will be forced to demonstrate why humanity has been so interested in quantum physics these past few decades. Vexthor's response was predictable. The Nexari Empire does not surrender to inferior species. All ships, overload your crystal matrices. We'll tear this sector of space apart if we have to. As you wish. Walsh's voice carried no emotion as she gave the order. Dr. Martinez, initiate quantum cascade. The energy that the Archimedes had been collecting began to pulse outward in controlled waves. Each pulse carried with it distortions in the fabric of space-time itself. The Nexari ships' crystalline hulls, their pride and symbol of technological superiority, began to resonate with these waves in ways their designers had never anticipated. Sir, Zix's panic was now evident. The quantum vibrations, they're matching our crystal lattice frequency. The hulls are beginning to. He never finished his sentence. The first Nexari vessel shattered like glass, its crystalline structure breaking apart at the molecular level. The effect cascaded through the fleet, each ship's destruction feeding more energy into the quantum field, accelerating the process. The Eternal Dawn's bridge erupted in chaos as officers reported simultaneous failures across all systems. Their mighty flagship, Terror of 1,000 Worlds, was being unmade by forces they couldn't even comprehend. What are you? Vexthor demanded, his final transmission filled with fear rather than arrogance. Commander Walsh's response was cold and clear. We are humanity. Admiral, while you were busy conquering and destroying, we were learning and building. Every research vessel you mocked, every scientific mission you dismissed, they were all working toward this moment. Your empire's greatest weakness was assuming that every species would develop technology the same way you did. The quantum cascade reached its peak. In a final brilliant display, the remaining Nexeri ships disintegrated simultaneously. Their crystalline hulls, once thought indestructible, broke down into their component atoms, scattered across the quantum field like stardust. When the light faded, the Archimedes floated alone in suddenly empty space. The mighty Nexeri fleet, pride of an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was simply gone. Lieutenant Foster broke the bridge's silence. "No survivors detected, Commander. The quantum field is dissipating normally, all systems performing within expected parameters." Walsh allowed herself a small sigh. "Send the confirmation signal to Earth Command. The Nexeri Empire has been given their demonstration. Now we wait to see if they're wise enough to understand it." Dr. Martinez's voice was quiet as she studied her final readings. "The power we unleashed here today, we could have done so much worse. That's the difference between us and them, Doctor," Walsh replied. "We developed this technology not because we wanted to destroy, but because we needed to defend. The galaxy's balance of power has changed today, but our humanity remains intact." The Archimedes systems began powering down, its extraordinary weapons once again disguised as simple research equipment. But the message had been sent. Humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated. The age of empires attacking Earth with impunity was over. The Silent Gambit, Part 5. Echo of Warning. 1 month after the Nexeri incident, Commander Walsh stood before the Galactic Consortium's Emergency Council. The vast chamber, filled with representatives from hundreds of spacefaring civilizations, hummed with nervous energy. The destruction of the Nexeri fleet had sent shockwaves through the galaxy's political landscape. High Chancellor Vorn, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate mechanical frame, addressed the assembly. "We have reviewed the evidence presented by Earth's delegation. The implications are disturbing. Humanity has developed technology that fundamentally alters our understanding of warfare." Walsh stood firm before the council, her dress uniform carrying the new insignia of Earth's Quantum Defense Force. "The technology was developed out of necessity, Chancellor. For too long, humanity watched as empires like the Nexeri preyed upon younger civilizations. We chose to take a different path." The consortium's chamber erupted in overlapping voices, each species reacting according to their nature. Some expressed fear, others admiration, and more than a few voiced outrage. The balance of power they had known for millennia had been upended by what they had dismissed as a young, primitive species. Representative Kittle of the Meridian Collective raised his crystalline appendage. "How can we trust that humanity won't become what they sought to defeat? This quantum manipulation technology could render traditional defenses obsolete." "Because we remember what it means to be vulnerable," Walsh responded. "Earth's development was nearly halted dozens of times by interventions from advanced species. We survived through innovation and determination, not conquest and subjugation." Dr. Martinez, now Earth's chief of quantum sciences, stepped forward with data displays materializing around her. "We're prepared to share our defensive technologies with the consortium, under proper oversight. Our goal was never domination, but protection, for ourselves and others." The displays showed the careful development of Earth's quantum technology, each breakthrough disguised as normal scientific research. Years of patience, of playing the role of an underdog, while secretly advancing far beyond what anyone had suspected. "The Nexeri Empire has withdrawn from 17 systems since our encounter," Walsh continued. "Former victim worlds are reclaiming their independence. We've shown that technological superiority doesn't have to mean moral bankruptcy." Chancellor Vorn's energy form flickered thoughtfully. "And what of the rumors that this was not your only research vessel?" Walsh allowed herself a small smile. "The Archimedes was a demonstration, Chancellor. Earth now maintains a network of quantum defense platforms throughout human space. We call it the Guardian Initiative. Any species considering aggressive action against Earth or its allies would be wise to remember what happened to the Nexeri fleet." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had not only developed revolutionary technology, They had deployed it in secret, creating a defensive network right under the noses of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Lieutenant Foster, now stationed aboard humanity's first openly acknowledged quantum warship, sent a priority message to Walsh's neural implant. Nexary diplomatic vessel approaching Earth orbit. They're requesting permission to discuss terms of permanent peace. Walsh acknowledged the message with a subtle gesture. The mighty Nexary Empire, which had once laughed at human technology, was now seeking peaceful coexistence. It was exactly the outcome Earth's leaders had hoped for. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. Walsh addressed the Council. Earth extends an open hand to all species who wish to work together, to grow together. But let our victory over the Nexary serve as a reminder. Humanity will no longer tolerate bullies among the stars. As the Council session concluded, representatives from dozens of worlds approached the Earth delegation. Some offered alliances, others sought technology-sharing agreements, and a few simply wanted to understand how humanity had achieved such advancement in secret. Back aboard the Archimedes, now recognized as the ship that changed galactic history, Commander Walsh stood at her familiar position on the bridge. The vessel's quantum systems hummed quietly, no longer hiding their true nature. New orders from Earth Command. Foster reported. We're to begin open patrol of the outer colonies. No more pretending to be simple researchers. Walsh nodded, watching as distant stars twinkled through the quantum field that now visibly surrounded their ship. Send word to all vessels in the Guardian network. Operation Silent Gambit is officially complete. A new era of human space exploration begins today. Dr. Martinez looked up from her station, where real scientific research now happened alongside their defensive duties. The Nexary's defeat taught the galaxy that humanity isn't to be underestimated. But I hope they also learn the more important lesson. And what's that, Doctor? Walsh asked, though she already knew the answer. That true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when not to. We built all this not because we wanted to rule the stars, but because we wanted everyone to have the chance to reach them. The Archimedes engaged its quantum drive, its hull shimmering with the power that had reshaped galactic politics. Humanity had emerged from the shadows, not as conquerors like the Nexari, but as guardians. The silent gambit had paid off, and the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter for it.